Victoria's COVID-proof housing markets. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee because I'd like to have a look at this article from realestate.com.au because it's discussing apparently the COVID-proof housing markets in Victoria, and they're going to reveal that to us all today. Now, before we jump into this article, there's a few things I just want to highlight. We've just entered the first recession that Australia's had in about 28 years, everyone. Nearly 30 years. Nearly 30 years. And I'll bring up a website just to highlight how drastic this GDP cut has been. How big this hit has been, guys. We're not talking a small hit to GDP. Sure, we're doing a lot better than other countries around the world, but Australia, well, in general, we've been faring the last few economic troubles much better than any other part of the world. GFC Australia kind of flew through it. We're in a unique position. You know, we're a quarry on the edge of the world, and China demands a lot of natural resources. Now we can see here, look at that fall. We'll just take the chart out to max. That's the hit we've taken to GDP. So that's just the hit to the economy. And no one is surprised by that because we've had such a drastic intervention into the economy. See back here in 92, just back here, that's the recession Australia had to have. That was our last recession. I remember that as a child. There are a lot of people that will have no memory of that. A lot of people working, employed in business have no memory of that. We looked at a property spooker, a 28-year-old woman, and she had some good reasons as to how to buy property. But she's saying, jump in, take advantage of all of this government stimulus now. She'd be much too young to remember the recession. So, we've got this, number one, huge recession, huge hit to our GDP. We've got unemployment. It's also shooting up. It's gone, come back down a bit. But if you look at the unemployment and underemployment rate, and I prefer the Roy Morgan data, you're talking about 23% combined. And, well, if we add all the JobKeeper people to that as well, then it just looks even worse. We have what scares me the most is the trading while insolvent. So say you're doing business with another business and you send them an invoice. They can now just ignore it and take 6 months to get back to you. And you can't go on for that period of time. 6 months. What's that between friends? Nothing. Well, that's probably pretty normal for those of us that have worked on any construction projects with some, slow payers. But for normal people, it may be a bit of a surprise. But then we also have mortgage holidays, which have been extended out until March. Mortgage holidays. All of these things combined also with the JobKeeper and a job seeker, or the dole that's been converted to job seeker, which are helping people get by, even though they've been reduced. And perhaps that could be why it may be a bit premature to reveal that you've identified these markets that are just super resilient. Because we haven't really seen the impact on the economy of what happens when all these support mechanisms get pulled back, or even if they're reduced. Even if they're reduced. We're starting to see what happens when the banks are telling people they've got to pay. It's going to be slow, but it's going to start having an impact. So perhaps it's a bit premature to say these are COVID-proof housing markets. Or perhaps this is just more evidence of the two-speed recovery that the economy is going to take. We're going to see some aspects of our society that are not going to be impacted at all. And they're usually the loudest advocating for restrictions and freedoms, but that's another thing. So let's have a look at this. And is your suburb on this list? I'll let you answer that in the comments while I have a shot of coffee. Good coffee. Victoria's COVID-proof markets, where home prices have risen against the odds during the depths of lockdown, have been revealed. Prices surged over the past 3 months in towns in Victoria's northwest and southwest, many of which still offer bargain buying even after double-digit rises according to realestate.com.au. The Loddon Shire, comprising towns like Inglewood, Brute, and Wedderburn. I probably butchered that name, experienced the state's biggest quarterly house price boost of 44%. Now, let's jump over here to Google Earth so we can get an understanding of where it is. So we're going out past Bendigo, guys. We're going out past Bendigo. So, you know, you're not. Oh yeah, you're a bit of a distance from from Melbourne. You're on the way to Mildura, but you know you're out in the regions out here. You're out in the regions, which isn't too bad. But I mean, perhaps it could be the fact that people have got severe restrictions in Melbourne, and they're thinking, to hell with this. I'm going to move further out in the regions and get more freedom, more area around me. I don't want to be contained anymore. I don't want to live around all these nutcase neighbours that are dobbing everyone in. It was followed by Queenscliff Borough, home to Queenscliff and Point Lonsdale, 38%, Hindmarsh Shire, near Dimboola, Nihil and Rainbow at 28%. So it's just these country areas, people are flooding to them. Maybe actually they are COVID safe because you've got more land around it. And look at the price. You know, it sold for $205,000 in June. Okay, so we're talking very affordable regional houses. Are you ever going to see any capital growth there? Is there going to be, maybe there'll be demand. Maybe people know now the dangers of being close to the seat of power in Victoria. You want to be further in the regions. Could that be it? Could this be Dan Andrews' master plan to increase rates in the regions? Mildura notched Victoria's highest unit price gain of 39%, with Horsham 32% not far behind. Realestate.com.au chief economist Nerida Kniesby said some housing markets had remarkably performed better since the pandemic, almost all of them in the region. She added Melbourne fringe regions have been resilient amid tough conditions, with Nillumbik, Moorabool, Mitchell and Murrindindi each notching 6% quarterly house price gains. These are areas where people can get a lot more space and live more easily at the moment while not travelling into office or work, she said. And here's one that sold for 1.4 million. I mean, there you go. So they're not all 200 grand. Derbyn, in the city's inner north, joined Melbourne's COVID-proof housing markets with 5% price growth, while Moonee Valley, Maribyrnong and Casey led the way for units rising 9%. In units areas that are less exposed to foreign students and haven't seen high levels of development are relatively stable, she said. She tipped a boost in listings across Melbourne to follow last week's easing of key real estate restrictions, namely the ban on physical home inspections. Jallis Craig, Northcote director Sam Ringopoulos, said multi-million-dollar sales had continued throughout the coronavirus period in Derbyn, which, despite being so close to the CBD, offered plenty of the open green pandemic period buyers were seeking. Our market is a very popular market at the best of times. At the worst of times, the stock has dried up, but the buyer pool hasn't, he said. Derbyn is a fairly green wedge of the inner city, and in this time of lockdown, having somewhere beautiful to stretch your legs has become so important. He said the region had buyers' post-lockdown desires covered too, boasting top eateries, bars, schools, and public transport links. He said his office had been crazy busy since private inspections were revived last week. By close of business Tuesday, our Northcote office had booked in just shy of 200 private inspections for the week, he said. We're trying to balance that with the number of would-be sellers who need us to do appraisals. I think the market will be running hot through Christmas to January. Celeste and Tim Johnston bought a house in Derbyn during lockdown to upsize into. They're now seeking a buyer for their renovated and extended Edwardian home of 13 years at Northcote, which has a $1.8 to $1.9 million price guide. So there you go. I mean, it looks nice, but how big is it? You just buying the land, guys? $2 million? Miss Johnson said her family had loved the village feel of Westgarth Pocket offered, as well as being surrounded by beautiful parklands for bike riding, hiking and running. We're also able to walk to cafes, restaurants, bars, and the cinemas, she said. There's a health food store I know people travel an hour to get to. It's just down the road from us. So there we have it, everyone. All the portions of Melbourne, so that have, well, apparently resistant to this. What do you think, everyone? Do you think it's legitimate, or is it just the regions are shooting up and some of the more in-demand suburbs where people want to jump in? I mean, look at the units here. 16%, 32%, 39% in Mildura. I mean, Mildura, she's right up here, guys. It's on the border, isn't it? Almost. You've got a regional centre here. It's a big city. It's a big city. Why'd you go a unit in Mildura and not a house around somewhere else? Can you explain that to me? I guess maybe you want to downsize. Maybe it's an older couple that don't want to maintain the garden, that type of stuff. Probably. Still, there you have it. I wouldn't say this is an indicator that Melbourne property is completely resistant to this. You've got to remember we haven't really seen the impacts of these restrictions being pulled. And there are going to be some people that can afford to move no matter what. But that couple there who bought in that property, how are they going to handle it if they don't get the 1.9 or 1.6 million or 8 million they want for their place? What if they take a 30% hit or a 15% hit? And what's with these people buying something and then selling? Wouldn't you do it this other way around? Maybe I'm just not up with it. Anyway, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to support the content I created, there are a few ways you can. You can join the channel on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or Kucoin. You can buy merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, guys. Have a great day. I'll see you next time.